Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Helen Marley. It's good to be back with you again. In my first video, I talked about natural and healthy posture as well as hand position. In the second video, I talked about how to teach students how to have a beautiful singing sound by using a dropping and rolling motion. I call this the drip, drop, roll motion. So let's go ahead in this third video, review that particular physical gesture, and then I'll play some pieces for you discussing how we use this physical gesture in repertoire. So many teachers have told me how this particular physical gesture has made a world of difference in their piano teaching. Their students have beautiful sounds and good physicality at the piano. So it starts off with a nice drip where students imagine that water is dripping through their fingers like this. We say drip, drip, drip. We drop to our thighs. We feel that sense of arm weight and release of all tension. And then we roll forward and off of our thighs. I'm going to play a little bit of the Brahms A major intermezzo so that we can experiment with that lovely drip, drop, roll physical gesture. We can inhale before we begin and then exhale as we drop gradually into the keys. Must be channeled into our fingertips. And you'll notice that my torso leans slightly forward. We must always teach our students this great fluidity in motion and wonderful coordination of all the parts of the playing apparatus. You'll notice in these videos that I'm going to talk about release instead of being relaxed. Saying the word relax to our students is a very confusing word because how can anything be played on the piano if we're totally relaxed? Right? We'd be like jellyfish on the keyboards. But instead, if we use the term release, then the students get the idea that there is tension and then release. Tension and release. So it's a good idea to use that word instead of relax at the piano. Now I'm going to play 5 other pieces for you of various levels, and we're going to take a look again at that lovely drip, drop, roll physical gesture. Here we have the Melody by Mozart. This is a wonderful piece for an elementary level student. It's in succeeding at the piano, and the melody is by Mozart. This is a terrific piece for students to experience the dropping and the rolling gesture. In the right hand, the students will drop and then roll out of the keys. Remember that the rolling gesture is a forward moving gesture. We can also talk about balance. Of course, bringing out the melody line over the accompaniment. And usually at the ends of phrases, we have something that sounds like this. The last note has to be tapered, so it makes sense that that is where the roll is. So the note before it, the penultimate note, is where the drop can be. Another word for physical gesture is touch release. And the reason why I call it a touch release is because students also need to understand how to release off of the key once they've played it. So, lots of students do funny things. They'll be at the end of a piece and they'll just kind of sag into their thighs like a deflated balloon. That doesn't look good, and it's so sad. Other students might be like scared rabbits and they can't wait to get off of the piano. And they're already starting to move and they come off the bench. But here is a great place for students to go ahead and drop and roll off of the keys. That gesture makes the sound waft up into the air, giving everyone a beautiful sound at the end of the piece. And also, it gives a smile to the pianist as well as to the audience. The next piece I would like to explore is Moonbeams. This is from the second edition 1B book. In this particular piece about moonbeams, we can certainly ask our students about the imagery or the character of the piece. And they'll certainly go on about a moonlit night and moonbeams shining through the sky. So since this piece is a gentle piece, this lovely waltz bass is a terrific way to get our students to think about that dropping motion and then the rolling motion as well. So just to review, we want our students to see their 4 little hills, their knuckles very nicely formed for a good strong bridge support. We also want them to feel the sense of the elbows and the happy hanging humerus. They're both hanging to the sides. And we also want them to feel like they're playing on the pads of their fingers. And again, that beautiful tapering of the phrase, the penultimate note is a drop and then a roll. The rest of the piece is like this. The next piece we should look at is The Hunting Horns and the Echo by Turk. This is in Festival Collection Book 2. In this particular piece, there are quite a few repeated notes. And the sound can be quite strong. So you'll notice in this particular piece, there's no time for big drops or rolls. So instead, the little drops and the rolls are very small. So there's all kinds of funny ways our students might play it. First of all, they might play it so that they're really flopping around. At the keyboard, because then what happens? The whole body and the whole head bounces. And that sound isn't very good either, right? And then some students might want to do a swan gesture. And that sounds really funny too. And they don't have time to do that lovely swan gesture. And it's better if the elbows hang by their sides. So let's think about economy of motion, and let's have those drops in the rolls be small and the elbows slightly closer to the body. So you'll notice the students will drop here, and then on their way through that 5-finger pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is when they start their ascending roll. There are also repeated notes here. And the rolls can get bigger so that it intensifies with the dynamic marking. We also want to review that the students should play at the side tip of the thumb, and they can certainly lean forward into the keys for bigger strength and greater balance and coordination. The next piece I would like to play through is Autumn Colors. This is in Recital, the best of solos, and it's also in Recital throughout the year. This lovely piece is by Judith Strickland. The title, Autumn Colors, is a great way for our students to imagine all the colors they can see in the autumn leaves. The very first 2 lines really are all the same dynamic level. It's actually going to be pretty dull and boring, isn't it? So let's use imagination. How about that very first phrase? What kind of color does the student see in that phrase? They might say gold. And let them go ahead and drop more deeply into the keys and then roll forward and off the keys in a more rich sounding forward direction sound. So here we go. And then another one. That might be a lighter color of yellow. And then here. So maybe a light red here. Students can continue with a fiery orange. And of course, that's the high point of the whole phrase. And then the rolling out of the keys can be much more exaggerated. This is Song by Reinecke. This is in Festival Collection Book 3. So in the left hand here, we can review where on the thumb the student should play, and that's on the outside tip of the thumb. You notice I actually slanted my left hand a little bit more to the left hand. And then the right hand. Usually at the ends of phrases, the very last note should be tapered, so it would make sense that the penultimate note would be a nice dropping deeply into the key motion. The last piece I'd like to play for you is an Allemande by George Frederick Handel. This comes from Succeeding with the Masters, Volume 2, Baroque era. In this particular piece, the student has to play with a portato touch release in the left hand. Portato means sticky. And so there is no time to do a full drop and a full roll. So instead, the student can think about watching a buoy on a lake or in some sort of water. And the buoy just gently goes under the water and then comes back up. So of course we don't again want to have any tightness. Because the moment the student is tight in the wrist or the forearm, or really any part of their body, then the sound becomes dull, it becomes non-interesting, and in some cases it's downright ugly, unfortunately. So we always want to make sure that our students are playing with flexible wrists.